want to talk to you guys about the first time I saw Clerks. In fact, I want to talk to you guys about why I love Kevin Smith. Why, after all of these years, with his ups, with his downs, I've remained an ardent and loyal fan, probably to a fault. Why this man, this miser from New Jersey, has changed my life, and not just my life, but the life of so many other people. When I think about Kevin Smith, I think about the filmmaker I want to be. Not necessarily to copy his style, which he'll agree is fundamentally broken. It's very simplistic, but it's serving a point for comedy. He's never tried to really venture outside of what he's known for, and even though he has dipped his toe in other genres, it's always felt relatively firmly rooted, with the exception of Red State, which I actually enjoyed. But when I think about Kevin Smith, I think back to the View Askew universe. I think back to where it all began. And not necessarily for him. I think back to where it began for me. For me, I was 15 years old, 1997, at the local library trying to determine what to rent. And the librarian there, I don't know his name, some rotund dude with a beard and a brown sweater, asks me if I've ever seen Clerks. I said, no, I haven't. And he holds up the VHS, you know, in that old library plastic case where they put the box art on the insert. And he says, this movie is the most rented movie of all time. This movie will change your life. I didn't think much of it at the time. Black and white comedy, me being 15 and being a big fan of, let's say, Jim Carrey at the time. Sure, I'll go and check it out. So I took the movie home, sat down in my bed, believe it was a water bed. Yeah, I had a water bed. It was the 90s, leave me alone. And I sat down and I put it in my 13-inch color TV VCR combo. And I sat there for an hour and a half. And I watched this black and white movie looking like it was shot through security cameras at a convenience store in New Jersey. And I absolutely, utterly fell in love. I absolutely, from the first moment I ever saw Clerks, I fell in love with the concept. And right around that time, Mallrats was out. I recently hit home video. So I was able to go and immediately watch Mallrats after watching Clerks, and I oftentimes would watch both of them back to back. See, a lot of people out there hate Mallrats. I undeniably love it. It's, I think probably I've watched Mallrats more than I've watched Clerks over the years. Predominantly because I just happen to enjoy the setting, and I think the characters a little bit more. But that being said, for the sophomore outing from Kevin Smith, it was definitely met with a lot of pushback from, well, you could say film fans or critics, but let's be real here. Kevin has always kind of played up the critics hate him angle, and it's worked. But then came Chasing Amy. And it's one that it's a more mature movie, and I saw it still when I was younger, and I haven't really ever found myself going back to it again. Not because I hated it, not because I didn't like it, but I think because at the time, I didn't get the themes. And I need to go back and rewatch it now that I'm an adult, that I have children, that I've done so much more with my life than I did back in the 90s when I saw it. But what got me, what really intrigued me, what really took me by surprise was Dogma. And I remember hearing about Dogma, just reading it on some blog. I think it might have been like IGN or one of those late 90s movie blogs before they all blew up in the mid 2000s. Hell, before moviepoopshoot.com was a thing. And I remember it being, I think, June 1999. IGN posted a link to scriptorama.com, which happened to be hosting the entire Dogma shooting script. And I sat there in the high school library during my lunch break, reading this screenplay and audibly laughing out loud and enjoying every minute of it. So much so that later on that fall, I want to say October 99, my friends and I cut out school early, decided to head over to the local theater and check out the first screening of Dogma when it came out. There was only a few of us in the theater, but, still, it was a memorable experience because I remember being able to ultimately quote a number of scenes in the movie as we were watching it for the first time because I'd read the script. And then I recognized that certain things were missing. This is one of the first times I kind of realized that what you write down doesn't always make it into the final cut. Certain scenes, certain subplots are all missing. Later, I would discover on the special edition of Dogma, the 316-minute cut, or 3 hour and 16-minute cut, I think is what it was, that all of those scenes that were written, that I read back in the early summer of 1999, were all shot, or actually all on the special edition double disc DVD. So that was pretty cool to finally be able to go back and see those. And ever since then, I've very much wanted to see, the Kevin Smith cut of that movie. Give me the full, complete cut. Put it together and see how it is. The 316 cut. I think it'd be wonderful given the thematic elements of Dogma. And hell, to this day, if somebody asks me my favorite movie quote, I still go back to that, where, Ben Affleck says to Matt Damon, "Never let it be said that your anal retentive attention to detail never yielded positive results. You can't be anal retentive if you don't have an anus." Outstanding work. Love that movie. And then, of course, came the summer of 2001, when I was 19 years old, and Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back was coming out, August 2001. A year prior, almost 2 years prior, I had moved to San Diego, and I was attending Comic-Con. And Kevin Smith has always been a darling of Comic-Con, if you know anything about him. And I remember when he was it wasn't Hall H back then. Hall H didn't exist, but it was Hall CDEF. And he was there giving like a 2-hour Q&A conversation thing, as he's known to do, but this is way back in the day. And I actually asked him a question. I forget what I asked him, but he gave me an advanced screening ticket to see Jay and Silent Bob that night at an early screening. And I remember saying, "Thank you, sir." And he says, "Why'd you call me sir?" And I said, "Just showing respect." And I remember walking off and being very happy that I met at that time, and probably still to this day, when it comes to filmmaking, my personal hero. Such a weird moment. I remember it very vividly. And even before then, waiting in line to get into the room, Jay was making his way through the crowd, and I was able to get a selfie with Jay. I got to find that somewhere and show it to you guys. But what was crazy was, at the time, I had just started working at a drive-in movie theater. And I was a peon working in the concession stand. So getting a Saturday night off during the summer to go see a sneak preview of a movie probably wasn't going to be something I was going to be able to do. And the truth of the matter is, I wasn't able to do it. So the next day at Comic-Con, the last day of Comic-Con for 2001, I ended up over at, I forget what booth it was. I think it was a Lionsgate booth. And they were doing a giveaway for another Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back advanced screening. So I put in my raffle ticket, and about 2 weeks later, I think, week later maybe, I ended up getting that ticket. And I was ecstatic. But it was on a Saturday night at 6 p.m. How in the hell was I going to take the day off of work? At the time, we didn't have cell phones, really. So I called the work answering machine, which my boss, and even to this day, by the way, almost 20 years later, they still never listen to the answering machine. I left probably the absolute worst, stupid, fake voicemail I could ever think of in my entire life. I left a voicemail where I was more or less like, "Hey, Brian, I'm sick. I'm not going to be able to make it in tonight. I'm sorry." It was that bad. I was 19. I was faking it to the best of my ability. I was nervous. I didn't know if I was going to be able to pull it off to this day. I mean, he never heard it, so thank God, right? He would have known I was lying in a heartbeat. And I left. I grabbed a friend. We met up with a bunch of other friends of mine down at AMC Mission Valley 20 and watched a special advanced screening of Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. And the opening song of that movie, the fuck, That became the battle cry of my group of friends for years. That was always what we would say to each other when we were hanging out at the Night and Day Cafe in Coronado Island in San Diego, like a bunch of ne'er-do-wells doing nothing but chain smoking and smuggling booze in the middle of the night. And we would just quote that movie. That's another reason why his stuff means so much to me. It brought me a lot of joy with my friends. It brought me a lot of connectivity with my friends. And over the years, I went to Comic-Con. I attended Comic-Con, and I would do what I could to see Kevin Smith on Saturday nights. I would take it off of work, or I would do something to be able to watch Kevin Smith. My entire work knew how much I respected the guy and how much I liked the guy. So they actually were a little bit lenient with me as time went on, and I worked my way up to being a manager at the drive-in. I was almost fired, by the way, for skipping that night. I really was. They actually, as a side note, they put me as a ticket checker, right? Ticket checker, literally like the furthest away from the concession stand that I could go. There was like one light, and I would sit out there underneath the light, and I read Harry Potter books out there while I would like stop cars and check their tickets to make sure the box office wasn't stealing. Like, not even kidding you. That was my punishment for skipping work that night. Still worked my way to being management, still friends with everybody there all this time later. Love that place. But the most significant one for me was actually in 2007, where I was in film. I had just graduated film school, and I was at Comic-Con during the Kevin Smith panel, where some guy gets up there, some dude with bitch tits. I mean, I say I have bitch tits, like whatever. But he gets up there and he asks Kevin Smith, like he heckles Kevin Smith. And he asks him, like, are you ever going to make a movie without reusing your old characters that doesn't suck? And I think he was referring to Jersey Girl. I actually probably should touch upon Jersey Girl here in a second. And Kevin actually responded with this great retort and just brutalized the guy. Like, and the whole thing was like 2 minutes long, perfect clip. And I happened to be recording on my Sony mini DV camcorder. And I went home that night and I cut out that segment and I threw it up on YouTube and I titled it Kevin Smith Strikes Back. And the video clip blew up. And it made it everywhere. It got over 1 million views. But I wasn't monetized because this was in 2007 before that program really kicked off for everybody else. So I made nothing on the video. Opie and Anthony like watermarked it for their own website. Someone for Opie and Anthony stole the clip, watermarked it for their website, and put it up on their website. And even when I emailed their domain people about it, they never responded. So it felt like a massive like F you and F off sort of thing. But I don't really care. I mean, 1 million views and, it would have been nice to get the money for that. But hey, listen, it's, I've been able to kind of like slip it to Kevin Smith on Twitter. Hey, I'm that guy. I don't know why. Maybe I want a little bit of clout. Maybe I want to get an invite onto Fat Man on Batman or Smodcast or something. Maybe get him to come on, talk to me one time. I don't know. Maybe we'll become best friends. I don't know, man. Listen, I've just been fans of this guy for a long time. But I even remember March 26th, 2004, the day that Jersey Girl came out. And I say that because it was my birthday. My birthday is March 26th. And my mom knew I wanted to go see it. And so she came with me to go see Jersey Girl. Because it's Kevin Smith, I got to go see him. And arguably, it's not his best movie, to be fair. It's not his best movie. But it had heart to it. It had a lot of heart to it. And I think it's more liked now than it was at the time. Fans wanted another View Askew-niverse. This was his first post-View Askew-niverse movie. Fans wanted it, and it was something a little bit different. And even though he was in the advertisements trying to make cracks about Liv Tyler lighting the torch of Gondor because Return of the King had just come out and won all these awards a few months earlier, it still failed to resonate, I think, with a lot of people at the time. But, oftentimes these stories end up catching on as it goes on. So from there, it always kind of cracked me up because my mom loved the movie. She cried twice during it. She really liked it. And then a couple years later, you start hearing word about Clerks 2. Now, Clerks 2 came out for me during a pivotal time in my life. I was 24 at the time, 2006. And, I was in film school and I was wanting to like make a movie that would put me on the map like Clerks, you know, because back in the day, man, like if you were an indie filmmaker from like the mid 90s to like the mid to late 2000s, you know, like Kevin Smith is kind of your go-to, right? Like Smith, Rodriguez, Tarantino, Soderbergh, a bunch of these guys. You kind of like, you pick your favorite and you go with it. But Clerks 2 was something I was really looking forward to because I was a big fan of the Clerks animated series. And that ended up getting screwed over by ABC. And at the time, I already had it on DVD and watched it a bunch. But I remember going and seeing Clerks 2 and utterly falling in love with it because it spoke to me in so many ways that, like, you can move past where you are in life. You can also find happiness with what you're doing. You know, and I get it. Like, Clerks was a movie about Kevin in his 20s. Clerks 2 was a movie about Kevin in his 30s, and Clerks 3, whenever we get it, it's going to be about Kevin in his 40s or early 50s. I'm not too sure where it's going to be. But then we have the Cop Out movie. And Cop Out was just a paycheck, and it wasn't, you know, like, it just, I'll tell you this, as a fan of Kevin Smith, the worst part about that movie, in my opinion, is that it destroyed Kevin's idea of Bruce, like his image of Bruce Willis. It destroyed that idea because he was such a big Bruce Willis fan, and he talks about it, and he's very candid about how he felt making that movie and how Bruce Willis was on set, and how he still to this day is just kind of, you can tell that pinged him on a personal level. I get it. I really do get it. I felt bad. But another interesting factor, too, is at the time, well, a couple years earlier, I want to say 2006, 2007, maybe, Kevin Smith released a book called My Boring Ass Life, where he chronicled his life diary for a year. And I bought it and I read it. And it was so fascinating to me to kind of get that slice of life that I thought to myself, I could do the same thing. And I did. I kept a daily blog. It's hidden now, by the way. But I kept a daily blog from March 26, 2008 to March 26, 2009. Every day. And I'll tell you this, and this is one of the things that I think is the most fascinating aspect of it, and I think this is what I truly thank him for, is that inspiration. Because when you are doing a daily blog about your life, when you are a year past graduating college with a film degree in San Diego, trying to figure out how to move forward with your life, single, unattached, working at a drive-in theater as a manager 4 nights a week, and just trying to figure things out. When you do a blog, it actually puts you in the position to where you have to very much come up with things to be interesting. It forces you to get outside of your comfort zone. And I did. I went and worked on a movie in South Central for a week, did a whole bunch of other projects. I went to the MTV Movie Awards. I went to the Spike Scream Awards. I went to the Spike Video Game Awards, all with their own different situations. I did everything I could think of to try to be interesting in order to write about being interesting. It's the best possible way to get yourself out of a funk. It's the best possible way to try to figure out who you are, is by trying to force you to be interesting to somebody else. It's a weird thing, but I give him credit for that. That's where I met my girlfriend. We were together 12 years, actually, here in the next, 8 days. I better get her a gift. But, you know, I love that. And then, you know, like a couple little things, you know, he did The Red State not long after that. He's done some smaller movies since then. His career's kind of gone different directions, you know, since like his early days. And he's very, very open about that. You can tell that he is happy where he's at, but he also wishes he probably would have made better decisions. But the thing with Kevin, and this is the thing that I think a lot of us who do like online content need to realize and remember and humble ourselves to, is that we're not all going to be a Brad Pitt or a PewDiePie. We're not. It's just not going to happen. But we can be happy with what we have. We can be happy with the audience that supports us. We can be happy doing what we love. And that is, in my mind, the biggest takeaway from Kevin Smith. That is the biggest takeaway, is that with him, we are in a position, like, he does things to where he wants to do them his way. Good or bad. And that's something I can ultimately respect. And it's something that until the day I die, I will ultimately love and cherish. I don't know if Kevin can understand how much he means to someone like me or how much he means to other people. And I know he'll downplay it. If he ever heard this, he would go, oh, well, I get that. Because I've been in similar situations being on YouTube as long as I have. I've met people that have spoken to me very similar ways. And it's a humbling thing. You try to be as nice about it. You don't want to be egotistical. But the reality of it is this. Someone like Kevin, who has done so much, has impacted and influenced an entire generation of young filmmakers and podcasters and maybe authors and speakers. Like I would love to do a tour. I'm very gifted at the gabbing. And I think and part of that is I remember watching A Night with Kevin Smith for the first time with my friend. We drank a bottle of Zombie, which fucked me up. But we watched the whole 4 hours and I was just trashed. But it was so funny. The Prince story, how he met his wife story. I've been at Comic-Con. I've been in Hall H where he has just talked for 2 hours nonstop. I've asked him questions, like he's just such a person that I respect and that I admire. And I just wanted to talk about him for like 20 minutes now, 22 minutes, roughly. And if you've made it this far into this rant, I appreciate it. I'm just kind of getting this off my chest. There's not much going on right now that I feel like talking about movie-wise. So I thought I would just pick up the microphone and chat. And if you like this, if you want to hear me ever talk about other filmmakers or other movies I like or how I feel about them, be sure to let me know. Because I enjoy talking. And that's something that I've been able to hone and craft, I think, because I've taken a lot of inspiration from someone like Kevin Smith. So I owe him a lot. He'll never know it. He'll never accept it, but it's true. Thank you guys for listening. Have yourself a great Sunday and leave your comments if you want to, and I'll talk to you all later. Peace out.